For our forms, let's start with the cube. The cube is one of the more simple forms to add value to, because basically there's only going to be about 3 values on the form. Depending on where your light source is coming from, I'm going to have my light source coming from this direction, going down onto my cube. So from this direction, I basically just need a light, a middle, and a dark. A 1, a 3, and a 5. So my 1 is hardly any value. So there, I'm going to take the value away. So I'm going to use my eraser, and I'm going to erase what I have inside of the top of the cube. I'm also going to try to lighten those lines that I have drawn, and I'll go back and clean those areas up in a little while, but I want the top of it to be really, really clean. So I have my 1 value. This is a 3, so I'm going to leave that alone, and then this side is going to be a 5. So that's where I'm going to use my pencil and add value in. So notice that my pencil is on its side and that I am shading in with about a 4 to start with. And then I might use the number 5 to have areas that are darker rather than having it all be the darkest that I can get immediately, because I want my shadow to be much darker. So what I'm going to do is, you see the illusion is already happening. I'm going to darken this area that's up on the top of the cube, and then I'm going to have this be a range of values between the darkest that my pencil will get, and then let it kind of be a little bit lighter as it goes further down. And then I would also take my blending tool. You guys might be using either a paper towel or you might have a blending stump. And then I'm going to blend it from the lighter area, which was at about a 4 right now, up into that 5, 6 value. And try to keep this neat so that you don't have to clean it up, because it's hard to get rid of those darker areas if you have to, so that I have that blending that's kind of really, really very subtle. In between. So that's how you basically just shade the form. If you wanted to add in some value underneath here, you could, but it's not completely necessary, but you could. Depending on where the light source is if there would have any other values on the front here. But for the most part, cubes are 1s, 3s, and 5s. For the shadow, I'm going to draw a line that goes straight out in like a 90-degree angle from the back of the cube, and then a line that goes straight from the bottom of the cube as well. I'm going to leave a little bitty slice of a line, which would be like a highlight, so that you can see the difference between the form and your cast shadow. So for the cast shadows, we want to start with a darker value closest to the form, and then as you go outwards away from the object, it's going to slowly fade away. So you're going to have almost like a value scale, a range of values inside of your cast shadows. And then you'd use your blending tool and go from the lightest area to the dark. And blend that so that your values are smooth and you have a smooth transition of values. Now, if you have a kneaded eraser, and this would work with a pink eraser as well, but better with a kneaded eraser. If anything got too dark, you can use your kneaded eraser to kind of clean up those edges and pick up just a little bit of the value, but not all of it. So I'm dabbing that just to get rid of some of that, and I'm going to kind of push and pull between my values. Okay, so now let's deal with the fact that we have this horizon line. The horizon line represents the wall and then the surface. So this is the wall, like the background, and then this is the surface that the cube is sitting on. You want to decide which is going to be darker, which would be lighter. I'm going to have the back on this one be a little bit darker. And remember, my light source is coming from this way. So I'm going to add some value in the background. And I want to blend this value into that line that is the top of my form. When we're drawing and creating graphite shading, or using graphite to model form, we want to try to get rid of pencil lines and use contrast rather than relying on lines as we're drawing. And that's going to kind of make your drawings look a whole lot better. So I'm going to try to match my value that's in the background to those lines that I drew. So this would be like a number 4 value. Right down here, right next to the horizon line, I went a little bit darker, close to almost a 5. Thank you. Thank you. And then I'm going to blend these values out, and I am going to erase where my light source is, just to represent that there's light coming from that area. And clean that up. All right, so now let's blend. So I'm going to start from the slightest area. And blend down toward my line. And remember, I'm trying to get that line to go away. So be really careful in those areas and try to get those lines to go away. And blend, 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 blend from the lightest area to the darkest. If your blending stick is getting too dark, take a moment and clean it off. If you're using a paper towel or a napkin, just use a new area on your paper towel or napkin. If this over here is blending too much, remember, take some value away. And you could almost make it a little bit like the light is kind of shining behind it a little bit. And you can lighten that up. But your main focus here is to get rid of those pencil lines that you drew initially and make it about contrast rather than about having those lines in your drawings. On the bottom surface, yes, you could have value there as well, maybe just a little bit, but you do want it to contrast from the top. So I might put a little bit of a shadow underneath here, just a little one. Not very much. And then blend out those areas. So again, you have more contrast, not necessarily just pencil lines. So from here, finish up whatever you have. These two are too much the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase a bit on this side and lighten up that line. And then blend that outwards. All right, and there's your form, your cube.